So Geico was originally established in 1936. Who would have thought that since then, I imagine dune buggies and horses and carriages, but obviously the Model Ts and all those vehicles had started. So growing from a company that was just in the beginning phases of insurance and autos and growing to where they're at today, they've come up with some pretty cool devices. One of them today we're going to speak about, which is their DriveEasy tracking device. We're going to find out whether this large company, which is one of the top companies for having really good rates, is doing a fair evaluation of your driving. So I'm going to tell you at first, it looks really bad. I'm Mark with Think Insurance, and let's dive right into this. So I'm going to start off with some negatives because I really didn't get a really good vibe when I started researching this. If you haven't watched my other videos, this is the fourth one that I've done so far. We've done State Farm, we've done Progressives, we've done a couple other ones. I think we're going to do AAA next. And there's some things that I wish they would have done differently. As big as Geico is and as much marketing money as they have to throw into the market, which they do. They're known for having huge marketing budgets and going right at it. And that's one of the reasons they're so large and they're very price competitive. The problem that I've ran into is they weren't very clear on what kind of discounts you're going to get, but we're going to unravel a little bit of that right now. So it's called GEICO Mobile. That's the app that you download for their software or for their system to log into your policy. And they have another app called DriveEasy. Well, it's a little bit confusing because the DriveEasy, don't even bother. Look at the reviews on that. Actually, I'll pull up a couple quotes for you. So the first one says, I honestly think that's rigged. Another one says, inaccurate tracking, has consistent connection issues. This app isn't very accurate. Now, I'm obviously leaving out some of the good ones. There's a few that say, I love this app. This is great, saving me money. People that are just starting it out. But if you look at it, the majority, where if you're used to the Amazon rating factors, where you see little bars of how well or how bad a system is doing, most of it, I would say over 50% of the people that have used the app have some sort of complaint or just don't like it. And the reason being is that it's very inaccurate according to what I've been reading. What they're doing is they've done something a little bit smart. So what Geico is starting to do is I believe that they're shifting that app over to their actual policy center. So you can actually start accessing that system through the policy center where you're not going to see those reviews as heavily. If you're with Geico now, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they're leaving the DriveEasy by Geico app and they're moving into the Geico Mobile, which is their policy center. And so they're kind of shifting that. Part of the reason, and I get it, is they want to clean up some of those reviews would be my estimate, and maybe they have a better tracking system that they're starting to implement. Either way, whether it's that app or the other, it doesn't really matter. It is what it is. It's a tracking system. So let's dive into what specifically it does. We've already checked several different companies, and like I mentioned before, we ran 3 or 4 other telematics systems through other companies, and actually they've been fairly good. State Farm has a really good one. Progressive I'm actually trying out right now. I'm almost done with my trial. They'll let you do it ahead of time and test it. So if you're interested in something like that, I'll link it below. Feel free to test drive your driving habits before you download the GEICO app. It would really give you something to compare to, but also you don't even have to get a quote from Progressive. So if it's something you just want to check into and test, I've got some really good research going on that. I'll actually link the video to that right here. And then I'll have another video coming out here within about 10 days or so that will actually go through the actual process that I'm going through. I'm actually very surprised how well it's going, but I'll dig into that more in that video. There are some strikes against my driving, which are very similar to Geico's, and we'll wait until that video is ready because I'm not done finishing the test drive. I'm curious to see what kind of discount they give me at the end of this whole thing. So this DriveEasy program is something that Geico is really pushing because they're offering a 25% discount. That's pretty good. Now, I've seen this with other companies like State Auto where they do offer a 25% discount, but they do it also the same way, where you could get a 25% discount or you could get a negative strike. And they don't really tell you how far of a discount it is that you would lose. So you could be a great driver and they give you a 10, 15, 25% off, or you're not a good driver and they deduct 10, 15, 25%. My assumption is it's going to be 25%, so it'd swing both ways. That's what I've seen most commonly. You can't quote me on that one because I couldn't find it on their website how much of a negative strike it becomes. Going into one of the cool things is they are very transparent with where they're doing with your data. And this is very common to what other companies are doing, a little bit similar, but what they're doing is they're actually telling you right up front how much data that they're going to use off of your phone. And they're averaging about 60 to 70 megabytes per month. So it's not a whole lot that's being deducted, but if you're on a data plan and you're close to the end of it and you always get close to that edge, you may want to think about this before you activate that, because it will take away from your time or your minutes used on your cell phone plan. What it does is it tries to delay. So if they say the first quarter mile that you drive, they're not tracking. So that's what activates the system. When it realizes that the phone is starting to move, it starts to slowly wake up. It goes into like a deep sleep or a hibernated sleep, similar to what a computer would do. And it's just the app in the background. So what are they really looking for? Well, they're looking for the most common things. How fast you drive, so the speed that you take off at. How quickly you brake. That's a big thing that people talk about, is they say that they're rated heavily on brakes, so it might be a little bit touchy. They're also doing cornering, which is not a common thing. Some companies say they want to check your cornering, so how your phone tilts and moves. If you've ever seen a kid or yourself play a video game, your phone knows when it's shifting. And so when it gets that, it can see how quickly, depending on the speed and the movement of your vehicle, it'll get the cornering. Now, I don't think that it's going to be an accurate piece. You'll have to let me know in the comments below if you've used this, but according to the comments on the app, it hasn't been so great. So they're getting a lot of cornering measured into that system. Distance being driven, that's obviously a factor, because how far you go makes a difference. The more you're on the road, the more risk there is. The time that you're driving, we've been able to correlate that the nighttime seems to be the most risky. It doesn't make sense to me directly, because it seems like there's not a lot of people on the road, but maybe that's when it's kind of like bar closes and there's higher chances of liability claims, where if you get in an accident, you could get injured. That's the only reason I can see where that's going to play a larger factor. So if you're at midnight, I believe, until 4 a.m. is those time frames which most companies don't love. And the last two pieces is smoothness, which is kind of a weird thing. So they're measuring bumps. So it's similar to what they're saying is the road conditions. If your phone is bouncing a lot, then you're typically going over a lot of bumps. Now, I keep my phone in my pocket more often than not, and so that's going to pick up the bumps heavier. I might want to put a pillow next to me for that 30 to 45 day trial period, where they're going to show me that and try to keep it as safe as possible. Now, what I also have done, and what most people are doing nowadays, is they have a little phone holster that typically clips onto your vent, and you can magnetically clip your phone or some sort of holder. The thing that you got to be very careful with this, and this is what I'm finding with my snapshot system that I'm testing, is when I get a text, if I look at the phone and it turns on, some of your phones turn on automatically, it sees my face and unlocks. So if it does that and it opens the system, I've had an old Android system, I think the S8, Galaxy S8 or something, where I got frustrated because every time I had it sitting on the desk and a text would come in, it would see my face unlock and open. It's going to register that as being phone use. So it's going to assume that you're distracted driving. Now, I'm going to defend Geico a little bit here, because there are some reviews in there that there are people complaining, I drive a company vehicle and it's not my fault that they track me. Well, you can check that you're not in that vehicle. So you have to do some manual usage there. The other part that I saw some complaints about was that my kid uses my phone and to keep them distracted so they're not distracting me. Well, it's a phone app. It's testing your driving. Don't give it to your kid to play with, because it doesn't know. It doesn't activate your camera and see. They're not trying to invade your personal privacy. What they're using is they're using your data to determine how quickly you drive, how fast you brake, all of those things that we just talked about. So if you're going to do this system or this program, don't let anyone use your phone. If you're driving in a passenger vehicle, make sure once it tracks that you go in and you manually adjust it so that they know that you're not driving in that vehicle. You're not the driver. Some apps, and I believe the Geico even lets you do it beforehand, so you can notify it that you're not going to be driving when you go on a trip. So I'm just going to read this straight from their site, from the notes. So when I talked about not being able to find the negative discount, here's what their website says. So it says some policies with lower scoring, drivers may include a surcharge. Personalized rating factors generally will not change after the initial logging period, so they're going to lock it in. After your telematics driving score is developed, the named insured, which is you, may request to restart the logging period, and any update to your rates will be applied at the next renewal. So if you do bad, they're giving you a redo, which is awesome. Most companies actually don't do that, so kudos to you, Geico. That's a really good feature that you're allowing people to do. Now, the thing is, you're not going to do well the second time if the app isn't working correctly. So here's where I would love your feedback. If any of you have tried the GEICO app, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are, whether it was a really good experience and you got a great discount. I'd love to see that. Or if it was just horrible and it just kept ticking off marks for things that you thought that you were doing well. The other part that I don't love, which is something that most companies don't do, is they actually require that everybody in the household, so anyone that's on your policy, any vehicle that you have, they all have to be tried at the same time. So if I have 4 vehicles and 4 drivers, I have to rate all 4 of them with that app. All my 4 drivers have to do that. Keeping track of that is a headache. Most companies like Nationwide and Progressive and even State Farm, they don't do that. They say, what car do you want to do it, or what driver do you want to rate for? We'll give you the best deal based on who's driving the vehicle. And if you choose not to have somebody rated on a vehicle, or one of your drivers not do the test, then we won't penalize you for it. We'll just give them the normal rate that we normally would. Well, Geico is almost forcing you to do all of it at once. If they screw up your score, then that could affect the whole discount that you get. Keep in mind, these discounts aren't meant to be a negative. They're not necessarily trying to bait and switch you into this. So I don't believe Geico is doing this because it would be pointless. They would lose more customers than they gained, and this program wouldn't be worth it. I'm fairly confident that of the majority, I would say at least half or more, they don't say it on their website, which is very scary because most of them are like 60 to 70% of their customers actually benefit from the app. Some of them don't even penalize you. So there's a lot better driving programs out there. I think Geico really missed the boat on this one. Hopefully they're tweaking it. That being said, I would love to see what their averages are. If I find those, I'll put those in the comments below. I'm going to do some more digging in on that, but I went through all of their disclosures, which we're going to talk about next, and I couldn't find any specific solid numbers where they say, here's our average, here's what you can expect. All they tell you is, great, you can get a 25% discount, asterisk. You got to dig a little bit further to find out that you can also get a surcharge. To wrap this up, let's dig into the stuff that a lot of people want to know is what data are they using and what information are they taking from me? How are they going to utilize my information? One of the FAQ questions, which I thought was very interesting, is will the data that is captured in the DriveEasy program be used to process a claim? And they flat out just said no, not at this time. They are planning, or they could plan to use this against you in claims or for you. So it can go both ways. I'm not really negative against this part of it, so I don't really have an opinion either which way. It really just depends on what they use with it. With great power, there is great responsibility. So you got to really decide whether that's worth it for you or not. As far as your data being shared, they say if you give us your email, Geico may use it from time to time to notify you of such things as new services, special offers, or to confirm transactions. So essentially what they're going to do is they're mixing in being able to contact you regarding your policy along with being able to advertise to you. The cool part is they're really good about this is they said you may unsubscribe. So at the bottom of any of the Geico emails, you can opt out. And lastly, where the data goes, they obviously can share it with their third parties, but here's what they said about that. If the law permits in your state, we may share information with financial services with which we have a joint marketing agreement. Now, that sounds kind of government official, like, okay, we can share some of the data if the government requires it. But they put in the word marketing agreement. And that triggered a thought to me, like, why are they marketing agreements with certain companies? So what are they really doing with your data? They are very clear so far from what they've explained, and you guys can definitely read it for yourselves, but they are very clear that they are going to market to you, and they are going to share your data within their encompass of companies because they own several different entities. There's about 4 or 5 versions of Geico or different underwriters and whatnot that are connected to it. And so they are going to market to you. Now, the cool part is you can opt out like we said before, but the other piece is that they do also say that they're not sharing your data personalized. So the only data that they're sharing outside of there, which is institution systems, what that is it's like marketing data. So it says the average American in New Jersey drives blah, 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 or the average. So there's companies that pay for that information. Well, what they do is they share it, but they remove your name and they remove your car and they remove all of that data that you couldn't publicly look up. Like you couldn't walk over to you and say, oh, there's Bill. He drives this car. This is what his mileage is per year. Here's what the Carfax on his car says. Here's what Chevy has on the VIN number. So all of that data that you can look up or pay for publicly, they can share that. And they said that they will share that if requested or if there's some sort of partnership. That's pretty common with most of them. And it's not really a preferred thing, but at least at the benefit, it's not sharing who it is. So they don't know it's you. They don't know I'm actually sharing my data. They lump me in a sum of everybody else and share that part of it. So let me know what you guys think about this whole thing. I honestly am a little leery recommending the Geico one because of all of the negatives. When I compare it to all of the other ones, what I would do personally if I was in your shoes and you're with Geico now, which a lot of people are because they are very competitive, especially with teens, especially in states where you have an accident or a ticket. They're just really good for those situations. I personally would talk to the agent or talk to their 800, their customer service system, and I would find out what the negative discount could go up to. And if you think that you're going to be a good fit, that you can go 30 to 45 days, it's 30 for most states. I think Illinois and some other states are 45 days of a trial period, where you think that you can do that, it might be worth it for you guys to at least check out, depending on how touchy the system is. Now, if it's touchy, the other question that I would ask is, what's my opt-out option? If I get in this thing and it starts telling me I'm doing things that I don't like, or it starts tracking things that it shouldn't be, then do I have the option to opt out without losing anything? And I believe you do from some of the comments that I saw on the app. Some of the people said that they actually backed out of the system, lost the whole discount, which is a little sad. But at the end of the day, they didn't get rated against. So definitely let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts? Is this something you would like to try, or something that you think is just a ripoff and they're just trying to steal your information? I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I will see you in the next one.